Did you ever think yeast, penicillium, rhizobium are all microorganisms, but penicillium and rhizobium and yeast, they are somehow helpful to us. Yeast is called as baker's friend. Why? Yes, you thought it right. Yeast, penicillium, rhizobium, they are all helpful to us. There are certain microorganisms which are useful to us and certain microorganisms which are harmful for us. So today we are going to talk about microorganisms as our friends. Okay. Now, please stay till the end, watch the video till the end to understand the chemical reaction that undergoes and why yeast is called as baker's friend. Okay, so let's start. I hope we all are doing well. Yes? Okay. So, see, microorganisms, they are as our friends. They are helpful for so many things. Number one, they are helpful in the field of medicine. Number two, they are helpful in the field of agriculture. Number three, they are helpful for environment. And number four, they are helpful for commercial purposes. Okay. So first we will talk about medicine. How are microorganisms useful in medicine? We know that antibiotics, they are made from bacteria and fungi. Okay. Then second use is vaccines. Vaccines, they are again made up of microorganisms. Now, antibiotics, they are made up of bacteria and fungi. I'll tell you a story about that. What happened in 1929, Alexander Fleming, he was studying a culture of a disease-causing microorganism. So when he was studying a culture of disease-causing microorganism, he found that green mold was there in the culture, and in that particular dish, wherein the green mold was there, in that particular dish, that disease-causing microorganism could not grow. So by that, he understood that the penicillium, which is a fungi, this prevented the growth of disease-causing microorganism, and thus the antibiotic was, he found about the antibiotic. So when did he find about the antibiotic? That was in 1729, and who found it first? Alexander Fleming. Now, what does the antibiotic do? They are made out of the bacteria and fungi, and they prevent the growth of the microorganisms. We might have seen that whenever we go to doctor, we see that the doctor prescribes us with some antibiotic if required, right? In case of viral fever or some fever or any other disease also, the doctor prescribes with the antibiotic. So what this antibiotic does is, it prevents the growth of the microorganism which has entered in our body. Now, one thing that we need to remember is, when we are taking in the antibiotics, we should never take the overdose of the antibiotic, because if we take the overdose of the antibiotic, then the antibiotic would not work in future whenever it will be required for any disease. Whenever the doctor will prescribe us with that particular antibiotic, then because the body would get used to that particular microorganism, so the antibiotic will not work on us. So we need to be very cautious, very careful while taking in the antibiotics. Okay. So this is how the antibiotics work. They stop the growth of the microorganism. Now the second is vaccines. What are vaccines? Vaccines are basically the weakened or the dead form of the microorganisms. Okay. So they are weak or dead form of microbes. Okay. Now, how does this work, weak or dead form of microbes? What happens that whenever any vaccine is prepared, so that vaccine will contain the weak and dead form of the microorganism, right? That vaccine will be injected in our body. Yes. So this dead form of the microorganism, this will be recognized by our immune system. Now, which cells in the immune system recognize this? That is the WBC or the white blood cell. So it will be recognized by the WBCs in our immune system. Okay. Now, this WBC, as it recognizes, see, this dead form or the weak form of the microorganism, it is called as antigen. Any foreign material which can harm our body is the antigen for us. Now, as this antigen is recognized by this WBC, so WBCs, they contain memory cells, and those memory cells, they remember this antigen, they remember this microorganism. Okay. So whenever, even in future, if that microorganism somehow, gets into our body, maybe through water, through air, or any other medium through which the microorganism gets into our body, then this WBC, the memory cells of our immune system, they will remember the antigen, okay, and produce antibodies for this, right? So they will produce antibodies. Now what these WBCs are, they are also called as the warrior cells of our immune system, or the warrior cells of our body. Okay. So they will produce antibodies, and these antibodies will kill this antigen, and this is how we are saved from the diseases and the disease causing microorganisms. So that is how the vaccines work. Okay. Now, one more thing, vaccines, they work using lock and key mechanism. Lock and key mechanism is, we might have seen that, any key does not work for a particular lock. For a particular lock, there is a particular key. Similarly, for a particular disease or for a particular microorganism, there is a particular vaccine, right? There are so many vaccines, but not all the vaccines, like for example, say chickenpox, right? For a chickenpox, a vaccine is there. But for the chickenpox, polio vaccine will not work. Or for polio, chickenpox vaccine will not work. So for chickenpox, the chickenpox vaccine will work, wherein it contains the particular virus, and for polio, the polio vaccine will work, wherein it contains a particular virus which is meant for polio, right? So thus vaccines, they work under lock and key mechanism. Okay. So that is how the medicinal use of microorganisms is covered. Okay. Now the next is the agricultural use of the microorganisms. So we know that decomposers are there. Yes. Decomposers, they are microorganisms. They have saprophytic mode of nutrition. Yes, they have saprophytic mode of nutrition. So what these decomposers do, whatever dead organic matter, right, whatever dead organic matter is there, it is decomposed by these decomposers, and then it is converted into humus. What is humus? Humus is the top layer of the soil. Top layer of soil. Now, how does this humus help? So, if this humus is not there in the soil, then soil will be just a sand. If the organic matter is not in the soil, soil will be just a sand, and sand is not good for agriculture, or sand is not good for crops, or only sand will not be able to, give us good crop. So, for giving us a good crop, we require humus. That is the top layer of the soil, right? Or this humus, it contains the organic matter. So this organic matter is made by the decomposers by converting the dead organic matter into humus. Okay. So this humus, it makes the soil fertile. Humus, it is the fertile part of the soil, or it makes the soil fertile because it contains the nutrients, right? This dead organic matter, when it is decomposed into nutrients, and this humus part of the soil, it contains the nutrients which is required for the crops to grow and flourish. Okay. So one use of microorganisms is that they make the soil fertile, right? make the soil fertile. Now, they make the soil fertile. One is by this decomposing the dead organic matter. Second way of making the soil fertile is by nitrogen fixing bacteria. Write in the comments which is the nitrogen fixing bacteria. So, rhizobium. Yes. Rhizobium, it fixes the atmospheric nitrogen because atmospheric nitrogen is not in the absorbable form for the plants. So it fixes the atmospheric nitrogen and converts it into absorbable form of nitrogen, and plants take in that, right? So this rhizobium bacteria, it stays in the root nodules of the leguminous plants and fixes the nitrogen, right? So this is how it makes the soil fertile, by making the soil nitrogen rich. Okay. So this is how is the agricultural use of the microorganisms. Okay. Now the next is the environmental use of the microorganisms. So as I said that decomposers, they decompose the dead organic matter, right? Just imagine if the decomposers were not there, then all the dead organic matter present in the environment, it will rot and it will give us a foul smell, which we will certainly not like, right? So what these decomposers do is they decompose the dead organic matter and they clean the environment. That is how they clean the environment, because they convert it into humus. Okay, so that is the use of the decomposers only are used. Right? Decomposers, they clean the environment. Okay. Now commercial purpose. As I said that yeast is the baker's friend. So why is yeast called as the baker's friend? See, microorganisms are used very much in food and beverage industry. Okay. So in food and beverage industry, how the microorganisms are used? Can you please mention it, some of the uses in the comments if we know that? So one use we might have seen that they are used for making, idli, dosa, then dhokla. Yes. Certain other uses that we know, please mention. Yes, for baking. As I said that yeast is used in baking industry also. And for making curd, cheese, right? So many uses of the microorganisms in the food industry. In beverage industry, for making alcohol, making of alcohol. Okay. Now what exactly happens in the food and the beverage industry, or how these microorganisms are useful? See, the process that takes place is called as fermentation. Now what is this fermentation? Fermentation is when microorganisms, they convert the glucose into acid or alcohol and carbon dioxide. CO2, I am writing for carbon dioxide, right? So fermentation is the process in which microorganisms, they act on this glucose. For example, yeast, right? Yeast acts on the glucose and then converts it into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Another example is when the making of curd, lactobacillus, it works on the glucose, it acts on the glucose and converts it into acid. Yes. So what happens that in milk, lactose is a sugar which is present, right? So this lactose is converted into lactic acid by the bacteria lactobacillus. Lactose, sugar, which is present in the milk, right? What mothers do is they take a spoonful of curd and put it in the milk, and then suppose if they try to set it in the night, then morning they see that the curd is set. So what exactly that spoonful of curd has done? So that spoonful of curd, it contained lactobacillus, right? This lactobacillus it converted the lactose sugar into lactic acid, right? And thus the milk, which was not sour in taste, is converted into curd, which is sour in taste because now lactic acid is present in the curd. Yes, earlier lactose sugar was present in the curd. Yes, so this lactobacillus has converted the lactose sugar into lactic acid, and this is how the curd is formed. Okay. Now, in case of in the baking industry, why yeast is called as the baker's friend? Because in the batter there is glucose present, right? So that glucose in presence of yeast is converted into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Now, what this carbon dioxide does, as carbon dioxide is the component of air, so it generates air pockets in the batter that is made for either bread or cake. Yes, so it generates air pockets, and these air pockets, these only they make the bread or the cake fluffy. When the batter is baked, then air pockets are seen inside, and that is how it becomes spongy or fluffy, right? So that is why yeast is called as the baker's friend. So this is what is the commercial use of the microorganisms. So there are different uses of these microorganisms. They are helpful in different ways. One is in the medicine field or in the medicine industry, for antibiotics and vaccines, in agriculture for making the soil fertile and fixing of nitrogen, for in the environment or environmental purpose, they clean the environment. They are very good environment cleaners, and for commercial purpose they are used in food and beverage industry. So I hope this is well understood. If there is any question, any query, any doubt, please mention it in the comments, and I'll be really happy to answer your queries. In the next class, we are going to discuss how microorganisms are foes for us. How are they how they are harmful to us. Okay? So till then, happy learning.